Hello, welcome back to Life Enrichment with Hank Ballinger. Today we want to talk about a plan for retirement. Before we get into that, we'd like to say thank you again to all those who watch the channel. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Would greatly appreciate that. It helps our algorithms on YouTube, so if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. Also, if you can, share with others on Facebook. That really seems to help when people share on Facebook. We'd really appreciate that. Again, our goal is to help others get out of the rat race, to just help people be able to set goals in their lives and to accomplish what they want to accomplish in life, not just what life throws at them. So that's our goal, and we appreciate all the help that you are. Thank you. Now, when we think about retirement, you know, it's one of those things, we talk about the golden years, we talk about, you know, our retirement, be able to maybe do a little traveling, maybe if we like hunting or fishing or just whatever. We want to be able to have those times to, after we've worked all of our lives, we kind of get a little tired when we start getting older. And it's nice just to have the time, the money, and the resources to be able to do the things we want to do rather than just be able to, or just have to work till we just literally cannot work anymore. And then we don't feel good enough to travel or do the things that we want to do. So we want to think about retirement, but the best time to think about retirement, if you saw my last video about planning for retirement and getting into real estate when you're young, that way it has a lot of time to build up and a lot of equity. So it's very important that you do that when you're young. You don't need to wait till you're 60, 63 years old and say, you know what, I'm going to be retiring in a few years. I probably better plan for this. Probably too late at that point. Retirement and putting money into retirement, whether it's a 401 or a stock or whatever, the more time you have, the better, and it's going to build a lot faster over time. So people just need to plan for retirement. So I want to look at some things. First of all, are you alive? Now, if you are alive today, it is not too late nor too early to plan your retirement. Now, some people would say, you know what, and I used to work with guys all the time. I'd try to get them to put into a 401k. That's what they offered where I worked. And I'd try to get these young guys to put into the 401k, and they'd say, you know what, I'm young, I've got plenty of time. And I'd say, well, the fact that you're young and you got plenty of time actually makes it better. The longer you put into this, the better off you'll be someday. Nah, I've got money, I've got, you know, things I need to do. And many of those guys, they were young enough, they were still living at home, and said, some of them said, I can't afford to put into a retirement. You don't have to pay for your own house. You don't have a house payment, taxes, insurance, utilities. You don't have any of those bills on a house. You're not married. If you don't plan and put in now at that point, you're not going to be in much better shape most of your life than you will at that point. If you can't afford it then, you probably are not going to be able to afford it any of your life if you're living on that much of your income. Plus, it's not that you can't afford it. You can't afford not to plan for retirement some way or another. Now, I'm not a big 401 or I'm not a big stock market guy. I'm a real estate guy. I think you'll make a whole lot more in real estate. But if you're not going to do real estate, you still need to plan for your retirement. Hopefully you will live long enough to retire and enjoy it. But if you don't have money put back, you're going to have to work the rest of your lives. And that, if you'll watch Dave Ramsey, you'll see people calling in at 60, 63, 65, 67, 68 years of age. They have a lot of debt and no money. And they think, well, how can I retire? And Dave tells them, you can't. You're going to have to work till you die. And he says, you don't need to see the inside of a restaurant unless you're working in it. You don't need to be eating there. You don't need to be going on vacations. You can't afford to do this stuff. So you need to plan and plan early for that. So if you're alive, it is not too late, nor is it too early to plan for retirement. Now, how long do you plan on living? I don't know too many people that generally, when I ask that question, they just throw out a number. I plan on living to 67. I plan on living to 80. I plan on living to 90. Most of us don't have a number in mind. We just say, well, I'd like to live as long as possible, but I want to be healthy as long as I live. But you know what? I've found out as I get older, we really don't have a lot of control on that. Now, there are a few things that we do have some control on. Now, and I don't have the statistics here. Maybe someday we'll do a video on that. It is really interesting that the more money you have, the healthier you are throughout life. Maybe someday I can do a video on that, showing that if you're wealthy, you are healthier because you go to the doctor when you need to go to the doctor. If your teeth need fixed, you fix your teeth. If there's a problem, you fix it rather than just say, well, I can't afford it, and just become very unhealthy and live an unhealthy life and die early. So healthier, wealthier people generally live longer. So how long do you plan on living? None of us really know how long we're going to live. We know that we would like to live long enough that we can retire and that we can do those things that we would like to do with our family, our friends, whatever, or maybe just travel by ourselves. So we want to do that, but planning is key, very important. Now, my generation, the baby boomers, everybody's heard about the baby boomers. There was about 76 million of us baby boomers. I'm at the end of the baby boomers. I was born in 1963. Generally speaking, the baby boomers was from 1946 to 1964, about 18, 20 years, but let's just say 20 years. 76 million baby boomers. Now, if you take 76 million and divide that by 20 years, and then divide 20 years by 365 days in each year, you're going to find out that today, about 10,400 and some odd number baby boomers are retiring every single day for 20 years. 76 million baby boomers over 20 years, that's 10,000 per day, 70,000 per week. Every week for 20 years will be retiring. They're taking money out of the stock market. They're taking their money out and saying, hey, I'm going to enjoy it. But you know what? The sad thing is that many of those people, they have no retirement. They didn't plan well. Many of them didn't. Now, some of them did because their company had a pension plan. We're going to talk more about that a little later on. But a lot of them, they didn't get a job in a company that had a pension. And then when they did get a job, kind of a mom and pop's business, no pension. They didn't put money back in a Roth or a 401, 403 or a SEP. They didn't put any money back in anything. And so now they get ready to retire. They have nothing. So there is no retirement. And generally, a lot of times you'll see them working at Walmart at the door. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, is that where you want to be at 60, 70, 80 years old when it's hard to get around and you don't really feel well? So baby boomers, right now there's about 65 to 70 million of us still alive. Odds are the baby boomers, many of us will live well into retirement. But will we have enough money during that retirement to do the things we want, or will we be forced to do the things that life thrusts upon us? That's not a good place to be. Why live your whole life not planning and then get to a place where you have to do the things that life forces you to do rather than the things you want to do? Okay? So let's look at this. Why or how do Americans not plan for retirement? This is the greatest nation, the most powerful nation, and the most affluent nation ever in the history of mankind. Americans are more wealthy. Do you realize in order to be the top 1% of wealth in the world, you only need to make about $34,000 $34,000 a year. Now, you can look that up on your phone. I encourage you to fact check me. If I'm wrong, let me know. But about $34,000 a year put you in the top 1% of people worldwide. And you know why that is? Because there are many people in a lot of places in the world today, they make about $2 a day. $2 a day. Now, we think we got it tough when we only make $10 or $12, $15 an hour. An hour versus $2 a day. You see why they're poor. They don't have the options that we do. But in America, the wealthiest nation ever to exist on this planet, and Americans don't plan for retirement. You need to change that. You need to change your family history. You need to change your family's future. You need to plan for retirement. Me and some friends that I went to high school with, oddly enough, I was talking to them at a funeral the other day, and we were talking about retirement. Now, fortunately, these guys are able to retire. Great. I'm proud of them. Great. Glad they can. But we were talking about so many people that we knew that they don't have money for retirement. They will literally have to work until they die unless something changes. So let's look at this. 44%. Now, these are statistics for Americans, not worldwide. Most people worldwide have no option. There is no choice. They will work till the day that they die, and probably die much earlier than Americans because we're generally in better health than they are. But 44% of Americans couldn't pay $1,000 addition in case the car broke down or the washing machine or whatever, something happened around the house. If they had to pay an additional $1,000, 44% of people in America, the greatest and most wealthy nation ever to exist on the history of this earth, 44% can't pay an additional $1,000. 60% of Americans, not just worldwide, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, meaning I have to get to Friday to be able to get to the next Friday, and then I got to get to this Friday to make it to the next one, and then the next one. I have to have that paycheck every single week, and if something interrupted that paycheck, somebody is not getting paid. 60% in the wealthiest nation on earth live paycheck to paycheck. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, but I don't make enough money to put money back. You do. You've got to discipline yourself. Listen to Dave Ramsey. Go on your phone, pull up an app that does a budget, and it will have everything listed on there. You start living by that budget and be very strict. You can't afford not to get on a budget. And I know that B word, it's a terrible word. Nobody likes the idea of a budget. I do 2 types of classes on building wealth. One to get out of debt and one to build wealth. The ones to build wealth I've done pretty well. The ones to get out of debt, very, very few people ever finish the course because I mentioned the word budget and they can't, it grits their teeth, just makes their teeth itch to think I've got to go on a budget and I've got to cut back. See, it's easy to tell people, oh, you can push and buy more stuff and buy assets that's going to make you wealthier. That's fun. That's easy. But the tough part is when you got to tell somebody you got to cut back. You can't go to the movies. You can't eat out. You can't go on vacation. You can't buy that new iPhone. You can't buy that car. Buy you a beater. Buy you a car that won't hardly run. You know, you may have to have it fixed pretty often, but still cheaper than buying that $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $80,000 car. So you can't afford it. Get good at those 4 words if you need to. I can't afford it. Get good at that if that's where you're at, because later on you won't be there if you get good at it now. Now, if you are one of those people that you are putting back for retirement, and I hope you are, but if you're one of those people that you're putting back for retirement, you also need money put back, 3 to 6 months living expenses somewhere else. Because you don't need that your washing machine breaks down or your car tears up and you have to pull out of your retirement to pay for that. You don't want to do that. Now, a lot of companies do make these provisions where if you have a hard time in life, if you have a hardship, you can pull out of a 401k. Generally, you have to write a letter to them and tell them why you're taking this money out. And many times they will let you. Now, some companies, you can take it out, but then you pay it back with interest to yourself. It's going into your account. So you're paying yourself back with interest. But I still don't encourage people to take it out of their retirement. Have a living expense budget in your budget set aside, money set aside for expenses and emergencies. You know what? I love what Dave Ramsey says. He says, emergencies are what happens while you're busy living. Emergencies come up, they happen. They're always going to happen. Life happens. So things are going to tear up. Things are going to happen. You're going to need money. Have 3 to 6 months living expenses. Now, if you pull out of that, make sure in your budget that you have some provisions to put money back in there to get that 3 to 6 months built back up. I know it's tough. It's tough. But sometimes you got to do it. So plan on retirement. Plan to have something so that you can enjoy life as you get older. Okay? Now, I want to talk a little bit about ERISA. In 1974, America hit a phase, and when you're studying macroeconomics, you got to realize everything that happens with money is important. In August the 15th, 1971, Richard Nixon took our money off the gold standard. When he did that, that immediately threw into the monetary engine that told these factories, before that time, they were paying people's pension. They had a pension plan. So if you went to work at a factory or corporation, they would have a pension that they paid for you. It's called a DB plan, a defined benefit plan. So they paid that for you. Well, after Nixon took our money off the gold standard, these factories realized, well, that's going to encourage inflation. And 1971 is when he took our money off the gold standard. 1970s is considered the decade of inflation. It did. Inflation hit. And things got higher and higher and higher. But what these companies said by 1974, they said, we can't afford to pay these people in the future as their wages keep going up. If they're paying, let's say they've paid 20 years of low wages or 30 years, and then they retire with a high wage, we don't have enough put back. So these companies said, we can't afford to do that. So in 1974, they passed ERISA. It stands for Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And they passed that, and that's what brought on the 401s, the 403s, the SEPs, and these are called DC plans, defined contribution. Before they were DB plans, when the company paid it for you, defined benefit. Now they're defined contributions, meaning the employee pays it for himself in a 401 or a 403 or something of that nature. There are other plans of other names, but there's still a DC plan. When you pay into it yourself, that's a DC plan. Now, many people contribute or don't contribute to DC plans. You know, it's interesting, when you went to a factory years ago and they had a pension, everybody loved it. Great, I got this great job. It's really awesome. They pay my pension for me, and I don't even have to pay it in. And they loved it. Then when they got ready to retire, they had a pension from the company. And then if they had put any money back at that time as an IRA, individual retirement account, and then they would have Social Security. So they would have 3 retirements after they retired. They lived good. Some of them lived better after retirement than they did while they worked. They had a pension, any retirement they paid, and then Social Security. They lived well. But see, Social Security was designed to be a supplemental income, never designed to be your primary source of income. Don't rely on specifically only Social Security. You need to plan for your own retirement. Don't rely on the government. Most companies and corporations no longer have pension plans. There are very few. Every now and then I hear of one, but it's kind of going back for years, back to the 70s. Since the 70s, companies have stopped doing that. And there's a lot of things we could get into about what happened once they stopped doing that. Now, let's look at this. I am 60 years old this year. Later this year, I'll be 60 years old. I got a letter the other day from the Social Security office that says this: if I retire at 62 years of age, I will be drawing $1,146 a month. That's if, as long as I make it there, if I retire at 62, that's how much I'll be drawing. It's also said if I worked until I was 65 and didn't pull out until I was 65, I would make $1,411. But if by chance I worked till I was 70 years old, I would make $2,018. Now, one of the things you got to look at is the difference between 62 and 70 is obviously 8 years. How long is it going to take you to make that money back that you made in those 8 years? How old would you need to live? And let's say you get to 78, 79, got in really bad shape, and died. Well, you've paid in, but you drew nothing out. And I'm not encouraging you, telling you when to take out at 62, 65, 70. It's none of my business. But what I am saying is this: Social Security should be a supplemental income, should not be your primary source of income. If it is, you didn't plan for retirement. Very important that as young people, you need to plan for retirement. It's your responsibility, okay? Do not get caught not planning, not thinking. Remember, Napoleon Hill wrote the book, Think and Grow Rich. It's your responsibility to think ahead, look ahead, see what's coming, and plan for that. You can become redneck rich. See you on the next video.